The chair at our dining table was still spinning when I walked into the room. That's the detail I remember most. Not the empty wine glass, not the trail of perfume that hadn't faded yet, not even the pair of heels tossed beneath the kitchen counter like they were ashamed of themselves. Just the chair turning slowly, like someone had rushed out and never planned to come back. But she did come back, eventually. Eliza left for Myra's party at 6:48 p.m., wearing a denim jacket she hadn't touched in months and a new shade of lipstick that definitely wasn't for me. I remember the time exactly because I just reheated my dinner, the one I made for two. She leaned into the doorway before leaving and said, "Don't wait up." Seriously. And I didn't. Not out of defiance. Not even out of anger. I didn't wait up because I'd already started the process of emotionally unplugging myself, like yanking the cord on an old lamp and watching the last flicker of light die in silence. See, it wasn't just the party. It was everything. It was the way she'd been talking to me like I was the neighbor, not the husband. The way she laughed louder at her phone than at my jokes. The way she turned every quiet moment into a reason to leave the room. But I didn't stop her from going. I didn't ask who would be there. I didn't ask what time she'd be home. I didn't tell her how I felt because she already knew, and she went anyway. So I did the only thing I could do without breaking something. I ignored her. No texts, no calls. No reactions to the blurry selfies she sent from a bathroom with rose gold lighting. I muted every app. I muted her. I spent the night alone microwaving dinner twice and pretending the second helping made it feel less lonely. Then silence. Until 3:16 a.m. I didn't see her. I heard her stumbling through the front door like she was trying to be quiet but forgot how doors worked. Her keys hit the floor. Then something else. A thud, soft but not casual. I stayed in bed. 5 minutes later, I heard the shower. 10 minutes after that, nothing. At 8:07 a.m., I walked downstairs. She wasn't in the kitchen. She wasn't in the living room. She wasn't even in our bedroom, but her purse was, and something was sticking out of it. Something she didn't mean for me to see. There it was, caught between the zipper of her purse and the fabric lining like it had been stuffed in hastily. A small priest receipt. No store name, no logo. Just a time, a date, a dollar amount, and one word printed near the bottom. Room 407. It didn't say what hotel. It didn't need to. I knew that handwriting. Eliza had scribbled a reminder on the back. "Don't forget charger." I stared at it like it might explode or erase itself if I blinked too long. I didn't say anything when she finally walked in from the backyard. She was holding a mug, wearing my old hoodie, the one with the frayed cuffs, acting like it was a normal Saturday morning, and she hadn't just come home at 3 a.m. M with the scent of unfamiliar cologne still faintly clinging to her skin. She looked at me, smiled like nothing was broken, and asked, "You want me to make eggs?" I should have asked her then. Should have held the receipt in the air like a white flag dipped in betrayal. But I didn't. I just said, "No thanks," and sat down at the table. My stomach was twisting, but my face stayed numb. That's how I've always survived her storms. Silence. I wear it like armor and pretend I'm brave. She sat across from me and scrolled through her phone like she wasn't aware of the hurricane in my chest. My eyes kept drifting to her purse. I wanted to grab it, shake it out, yell, "Who is he?" But instead, I said, "Did you have fun last night?" Calm? Too calm? She paused, then nodded. "Yeah, it was fine. You know, Myra, always dramatic, but it was nice catching up. I stared at her face, trying to read past the script. She was lying. I didn't know what about exactly, just that she was. Her eyes darted to the side a second too long. Her smile held just a moment too tight. I felt like I was talking to a version of her that had practiced this. And maybe she had. I stood up and went to the sink just to do something with my hands. My fingers trembled, so I gripped the edge of the counter until they stopped. That's when I said it quietly but clearly. I saw the receipt. She didn't answer immediately. I turned around. Her expression hadn't changed. "What receipt?" she asked. I took it from my back pocket and placed it on the table between us. She looked down at it. Her lips parted slightly. Then she gave a small laugh. Not amused, not defensive, just tired. "That's nothing," she said. We went to Myra's hotel after the party. A bunch of us were there. We ordered fries, drinks, just hung out. That's all it was. My heart wanted to believe her. My brain didn't. "You stayed out past 3. You didn't text. You didn't come to bed." "I didn't want to wake you," she replied. Then she leaned forward. "Why are you acting like this, Levi?" And there it was, the deflection, the guilt boomerang, tossed right back into my lap. I stood there, mouth open, hands cold, trying to piece together what was real and what was rehearsed. And all I could think about was that spinning chair from the night before. She was lying. I just didn't know how far the lie went yet. But I was going to find out, even if it ruined me. By the time she left for work, the house felt like it had been vacuum sealed. Every room was quiet. Too quiet, but not peaceful. More like the aftermath of a thunderstorm when the silence is soaked in tension. I sat on the couch with the receipt still in my hand. I must have read it 100 times. Myra's hotel, she said. Fries, drinks, laughs, nothing to worry about. And yet I couldn't stop picturing room 407 like it was a scene in a movie I wasn't invited to. Only I knew the ending already. I grabbed her purse again. I know it sounds wrong, like I was violating something sacred. But at that point, I didn't care. I needed answers, and she wasn't giving them willingly. I wasn't trying to catch her. I was trying to stop myself from unraveling. In the side pocket, I found her phone charger. In the zipped section, a gum wrapper and a tube of lipstick, a shade she hadn't worn in months. No hotel card, though. Maybe she tossed it already. I checked the bathroom trash. Nothing. Bedroom, nothing. Then I opened the drawer next to the bed where she kept a mess of receipts, random pens, and expired coupons. Underneath all of it, I found a napkin, plain white hotel bar logo in the corner, and a name written in black ink. Darren. It was underlined twice. I don't know why that broke me more than the receipt, but it did. My throat tightened. My hands shook. I sat down on the edge of the bed holding that napkin like it had just whispered something I couldn't unhear. Darren. Not a common name in her life. Not a colleague, not a cousin, not someone she ever mentioned around me. Why write it down? Why keep it? My stomach turned. I opened her laptop. I knew the password, our wedding anniversary. She hadn't changed it. I clicked through her emails. Nothing. Calendar empty. Then I clicked on her synced messages. She had deleted nearly everything from that night. Every photo, every text chain, every sent or received call. Except, she missed one. A call from a number saved under Myra, but it didn't add up. I clicked the contact info. That number didn't match Myra's. I still had Myra's number saved from years ago, back when we were invited to her chaotic birthday dinners. Different area code, different last 4 digits. So unless Myra had changed phones and not told my wife, which made no sense, she was hiding something. I called the number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. The automated voice said, "You've reached Darren. Leave a message." I hung up. My chest tightened like a seatbelt locking mid-collision. She renamed him Myra to cover it, to make the call history look clean in case I snooped, which clearly she expected. When she got home, I was sitting at the table, napkin on the table, her phone beside it. She paused in the doorway, looked at me, then looked at what I had laid out. Her face went pale. I said nothing at first, just looked at her. Then I asked, "So, how's Myra?" Her lips parted slightly. No words came out. Not at first. And that silence was the loudest confirmation I'd ever heard. She stood frozen in the doorway like the truth had physically blocked her from stepping inside. Her eyes darted between the napkin and her phone, then finally landed on me. But I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched her like someone watching a broken elevator, half expecting it to crash, half hoping it would fix itself. "Eliza," I said, my voice come only because the panic had drained out of it overnight. "You renamed him Myra." She didn't deny it, not right away. She opened her mouth, but whatever words she had rehearsed in her head seemed to dissolve under the weight of the obvious. "I can explain," she finally muttered, pulling out the chair across from me like we were about to have coffee and not a marital autopsy. I leaned forward slightly. "Please do," she exhaled. And for a second, her whole body seemed to collapse into itself. "Darren used to be someone I knew before us." She began. "We reconnected through Myra. It wasn't intentional. He was just there at the party. I didn't know he'd be, but you called him after. That wasn't an accidental run-in." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I did. We talked. Just talked. He was staying in the same hotel. We ended up hanging out after the party. Had a drink. That's it." I held up the napkin. You don't write someone's name down and underline it twice unless you want to remember it. Her lips pressed together. I could see the gears turning in her head, building a version of events where everything could be justified if framed the right way. I'd seen her do it at work dinners when she twisted awkward moments into harmless anecdotes. But this wasn't dinner. This was our marriage. "You're being dramatic," she finally said. "I stayed out late. I drank. I shouldn't have. But you're jumping to conclusions because of a stupid napkin and a call. And the receipt," I added, "and the deleted messages." She flinched at that. "I deleted them because I knew you'd overreact." "No, you deleted them because you didn't want me to see what you actually said." Her voice cracked when she tried to respond. "Levi, did you sleep with him?" I asked. Not a scream, not a plea, just a question. She looked at me for a long moment. Her silence stretched so far it wrapped around my throat. "No," she said finally, but she looked away when she said it. Her eyes went to the floor. Her hands fiddled with the edge of her sleeve. I stood up, slowly, carefully. I felt like I was balancing on a wire, like one wrong movement would send me plummeting. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said, "I need space. Eliza, I don't trust you. I don't even trust what you're telling yourself right now. I need to think." She stood up, reaching out, but stopped herself. "Please don't make this into something it's not." I didn't answer. I walked past her, grabbed my jacket, and left. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew that if I stayed in that house another second, I'd explode in 1,000 pieces. She'd never be able to put back together. As I drove, the only thing louder than the silence in the car was the way her voice cracked when she said no, and the terrifying thought that it might be the most honest part of her story so far. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed at a motel that smelled like cigarettes and carpet glue, staring at the ceiling until the shadows melted into daylight. The room was barely more than a bed and a buzzing mini-fridge, but at least it wasn't haunted by the sound of her voice cracking. I kept hearing it over and over, not because it was dramatic, but because it was the only part of her story that felt real. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was making something bigger than it was. But that napkin, the call, the deleted messages, they weren't accidents. They were signs. Not like flashing neon ones, but quiet, subtle signs. The kind that whisper instead of scream. The kind you ignore when you're trying too hard to believe everything's fine. By mid-morning, I was back in our driveway. I hadn't planned to return so soon, but there was something I needed to do, something I hadn't dared to touch before. Her old tablet. Eliza rarely used it anymore. It was from before we got new phones, but if she had backed anything up, it would have sunk there too. I didn't even know if it still worked. It did. I charged it in the kitchen while she was at work. The screen was dusty, the battery at 2%. But when I tapped in the code, the name of her childhood dog, bingo, it unlocked. She hadn't wiped it. At first, it was just old stuff. Vacation photos, Pinterest boards, random screenshots of memes. Then I found the synced messages folder. Most of it was from years ago, but one thread stood out. It was newer, less than a week old. The contact name was M. I assumed it was Myra again, but when I opened it, the conversation was short, barely 5 messages, except one of them made my pulse slam against my chest like a warning siren. Darren, can't stop thinking about how you looked when you left. That jacket was unfair. Eliza, you always didn't know how to flirt at the worst times. I didn't even wear it for you. Darren, liar, you still chew your lip when you're nervous. You did that all night. That was it. The last message had no reply. Just him calling her out on a tic she's had since college. A tic she only does when she's hiding something. I sat there staring at the screen like it had just punched me in the throat. I didn't know what scared me more, the flirtation or how casual it sounded. Like this wasn't new. Like this wasn't the first time. She knew I'd find the receipt eventually. She knew I'd ask questions, so she deleted the obvious things, but she forgot about this. She forgot about an old tablet sitting in a drawer gathering dust. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't go looking. That night when she got home, I didn't mention the messages. Not yet. I wanted to see what she'd offer on her own. She greeted me with cautious warmth, like a woman who knew she'd already used up her excuses and was trying to stretch silence into safety. I played along. We ate in near silence. She asked if I wanted to watch something. I said I was tired. Then, as she was brushing her teeth, I asked casually, "Did Darren message you?" Her hand froze mid-motion, the toothbrush in her mouth. Her eyes met mine through the mirror. There was a pause. "Message me," she said, spitting into the sink. "No, not since the party." That was it. The moment everything broke in my head. Not because she had talked to Darren, but because she'd forgotten I know how she lies. She always buys time by repeating the question. Always blinks too much when she's fabricating. And she always lies short. Just enough to escape the moment. Not enough to escape the truth. So, I nodded like I believed her, and I started planning my next move. Because I wasn't just looking for the truth anymore. I wanted her to hand it to me with nowhere left to hide. The next day, I did something I told myself I'd never do. I opened her phone while she was in the shower. The steam hadn't even finished fogging the mirror before I was thumbing through her apps like a ghost in my own marriage. I didn't want to be this version of myself. Suspicious, sneaky, drowning in doubt. when you ask for honesty and get a stage performance in return, your choices get real narrow, real fast. She'd changed her passcode. That part gutted me more than I expected. She hadn't just tried to lie, she'd planned to keep lying. She'd sealed the vault and handed me a fake key, hoping I'd go away quietly. But she'd forgotten the one thing I remembered. Her phone still mirrored to her old smartwatch, the one tucked away in her gym bag. She didn't use it anymore, said it gave her rashes when she ran, but it still received call alerts and voicemails. I charged it behind my desk while she was drying her hair. The screen blinked to life, sluggish, but still connected. One missed call. One voicemail from a number labeled M. I hit play. It was a man's voice. Deep, confident, familiar in a way I didn't like. Hey, I know you said not to call, but I wanted to say last weekend was complicated, but worth it. I hope you feel the same. You looked happy. That's all I wanted to say. Call me or don't. I'll understand. He ended with a quiet chuckle, that kind of half-laugh people do when they're nervous about how honest they just were. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing until the message ended. My ears were ringing. My hand was clenched so tightly around the watch that I nearly cracked the strap. That wasn't flirtation. That wasn't just drinks. That was a confession disguised as a compliment. It was a message you leave after you cross a line and hope it meant something to the other person, too. And still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. Not just about what she'd done, but about what I was going to do next. That night, I asked her if she wanted to go for a walk. She said sure. Surprised, maybe even a little relieved. We walked past the bakery where she used to drag me on Sundays, past the park where we once argued about which tree would be best to hang a hammock from. A lifetime ago. It felt like she started talking about work. Her voice relaxed, like she believed we were okay again, like she believed I was softening. That's when I asked, "Do you ever miss who we used to be?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" I shrugged, just thinking. She didn't answer. Not really. She squeezed my hand and said, "Things change, but it doesn't mean they can't get better." And maybe that was the most honest thing she'd said in weeks, because change was coming, just not the kind she was hoping for. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom. I sat on the couch playing the voicemail again on my headphones over and over, memorizing the exact way he said, "You looked happy, like my marriage had become a shared experience for someone else." That night I started writing a letter. Not to her. To me. Because before I could walk away from her lies, I needed to tell myself the truth first. The letter never made it to paper. Not because I changed my mind, but because the truth didn't wait for me to finish writing it. That's the thing about trying to time your own heartbreak. It doesn't care how prepared you think you are. It doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door in while you're still reaching for the handle. That morning, Eliza left early, said she had a strategy meeting with a new client at a co-working space downtown. She was dressed sharper than usual. Blazer, heels, subtle perfume. I'd seen that version of her before. It wasn't business. It was curated. Not for strangers, for someone familiar. I didn't say anything. Just kissed her on the cheek and watched her walk out the door like she hadn't already walked out months ago. Once she left, I did what I told myself I wouldn't. I logged into our shared phone account, something we only ever use to monitor data, but it also showed location pings, text logs, call records. There it was. A call to Darren's number 2 nights ago. not long after I had pretended to believe her story. 10 minutes long, right after I'd gone to bed early, pretending to be tired. She was still talking to him, still lying. But what hit me even harder was the location history. Her phone hadn't pinged at any co-working space that morning. It pinged near the Birchwood Hotel again. I sat back in my chair, numb, not angry, just stunned, like I was watching someone else's life collapse in slow motion. I'd suspected I'd gathered clues, but this was the full picture developing in front of me, and I was the one holding the negatives. I didn't call her. I didn't text. Instead, I drove, not to confront her, not yet. I drove to Burwood's front desk and asked a simple question. Has someone checked in under the name Darren Michaels today? The clerk gave me a look, hesitated, and politely said, I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest information. Fair. So, I sat in the lobby for an hour, then 2. And right when I was beginning to think I was losing my mind, I saw her walking through the glass doors, laughing, head tilted back like nothing in the world was broken. Darren followed behind her, close, not touching, but familiar, comfortable, like they didn't need to touch to say what had already been said a dozen times. I didn't get up. I didn't scream. I didn't approach. I just watched, and I saw it. The moment she looked over and her eyes met mine, she froze mid-step. Her smile vanished. Darren looked between us, confused, then cautious. Eliza muttered something to him and walked straight toward me. I stood up before she could speak. Her mouth opened like she was about to say my name, but I raised a hand. I just wanted to see it, I said quietly. I wanted to see the truth for myself. She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. And maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. She tried to explain, but I didn't listen. I walked out. When I got home, I opened her closet. I stared at the space where her heels used to be, the ones she wore to that first party. They were gone, replaced by something newer, something red. She'd moved on long before I had, but now I was finally catching up. The hardest part wasn't the lying. It wasn't the voicemail or the hotel or even seeing her with him. The hardest part was how quickly life returned to silence after I let go of the noise. There was no screaming, no smashed plates, no dramatic suitcase throwing. Just me standing in the middle of our living room, realizing I didn't love the version of myself I had become in that house. And I didn't have to stay that version anymore. I didn't wait for Eliza to come back. I left that afternoon. I packed only what mattered, my books, my tools, the hoodie she never wore but I always liked. Everything else could stay. Let her have the couch, the framed wedding photos, the coffee mugs that didn't match. I didn't want them. I wanted peace. I stayed with my cousin for a while, took long walks, started cooking again. I even joined a community history group at the library, something I'd always said I'd do when things settled down. Turns out sometimes life doesn't settle. You just have to walk away from the earthquake. I didn't block Eliza. I didn't send hate. I didn't know her rage. She texted once a long message about how complicated things got and how she never meant for it to go this far. She ended it with, I hope you find what you need. Funny thing is, I did. A few months later, I met someone. Not on purpose, not dramatically. Just a conversation in a bookstore that turned into coffee, that turned into slow, honest afternoons. She didn't rush me. She didn't fill every silence. She listened. And one day, without planning it, I realized I had started smiling without effort again. It wasn't about replacing Eliza. It was about reclaiming myself. We think endings are explosions, but sometimes they're just decisions. Quiet, necessary, overdue. So, if you're reading this or watching this thinking you'll never recover from the betrayal, let me tell you something simple but true. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You just need to close the door behind them and open one for yourself.